Speaking of college, I think, Pat, what's going on, buddy? Who you down there with now?
The greatest college football coach of all time, ladies and gentlemen, Nick Saban.
Yeah, coach! Good.
Hey, glad to be here.
How you doing, man? It's great to see you. You look fantastic. Is this linen here for the humidity? I know you're retired and you will frequent Florida, but when you come down here, is the body ready? Is the suit ready? Are you excited for tomorrow?
Yeah, this is Miami colors, man. This
is
it. That's what you wear in this kind of climate.
Are you going to try some of the local medicine here that I've...
No, I'm not allowed.
Oh, no, yes, you are. Yes, you
on,
are. Dr. Me says all is good. Let's talk about coming down here to Miami. Obviously, we all, from outside looking in, remember when Miami was the powerhouse. We just talked to Coach Cristobal, who obviously you know incredibly well. He said, we're trying to look forward. We're trying to, make this also a time because he was a part of the history. What do you see from this Miami team, and are they legit? Last year, a lot of football gods blessing them with a lot of great things. We thought maybe they were a team of destiny, fall off at the end. Cam Ward, number 1 overall pick. This year, they get Carson Beck, who obviously you know well. Do you think they are potentially implementing a culture that will be talked about for a long time around here?
Well, I think they are because I think they're a good team top to bottom. Last year they had a great offensive team. They couldn't stop anybody on defense. So they had to try to outscore everybody. It didn't always work out that way. One thing that I think if you really want to make it to the playoffs and you really want to make a run, you got to be able to play defense. You got to be able to play defense. All right, they got a great offense, and Carson Beck's doing a great job. I like their receivers. I think their offensive line is outstanding. Their 2 tackles are very physical, good players. And it plays right into what Carson Beck does best, which is pocket pass. And when you can't affect him in the pocket, he's really effective. But the fact that they can play so much better on defense this year, I think, is the thing that gives them the best chance because defense travels. I mean, even when you play on the road and you play in tough environments, it shouldn't affect the defensive players nearly as much as it does the offensive players. So if you have a good defensive team, I think you have a better chance in the long run to be successful.
It was an awesome production meeting this morning. We're talking about a lot of different teams. And one particular person was just saying, how's their defense? How's their defense? How's their defense? That person was this person. And I think you might hear a little bit of that tomorrow when he's breaking it down. But AJ, whenever push comes to shove, we talk about it in the NFL, like it doesn't show up till it shows up. And when it shows up normally is in the biggest moment. And it's like if you can't stop somebody in the biggest games, right now feels good, but inevitably you're probably pretty fearful for the future. What are your thoughts, AJ? And what's your question for Code?
Yeah, it's a demoralizing situation when you can't get off the field on third down, especially, or a team's running the ball just down your throat, and you're like, wait, I don't have any answers, and everyone starts jumping out of their gap and trying to do things that are outside of your responsibilities. I think that's a tough thing defensively. And speaking of that, Coach, like as a defense, and with your scheme and everything you've done over the years, how do you know, I guess, how to craft your scheme to your players to where, hey, it's not too complex, but it is, we have enough answers to what offenses are giving us, but I want these guys, you got great athletes, you're a great recruiter. I want these guys to run fast and not have to think too much. Like, how do you craft your game plan?
Well, one thing that I thought was really important because you say, sometimes you can't stop the run, sometimes you can't get off the field on third down. I was never one of these guys that tried to make it simple. I was a whole guy. To use, Pat's terminology, I would take a bucket of shit, throw it on the wall, see what stuck, pick up the shit, throw it up there until it all stuck. So it might take longer for some guys than others, but that's the way I approach it because we wanted to be able to make adjustments in the game. And I want players to play fast, and I want them to be confident in the game, and I was always going to pare it down for the game so they could do that. But if we had to make adjustments in the game and play better situation football, there were things that we can do. I mean, you've been in a situation where a team's getting in a bunch pass, and whatever you plan, to play in the game plan, you can't stop that pattern in the way you're geared up to stop it in practice. So you have to be able to change, and if the players can't adapt, you really can't change without going out there and making mistakes. So I was never a real simple guy. I wanted the players to play fast, but I think players develop a capacity to learn, and the more you challenge them, the more they'll learn, and the better they can adapt when they get in tough situations That's my opinion.
You're a natural teacher too, so I think you enjoy that. Not that all coaches aren't, but it feels like it is your actual calling and passion, and football happens to be the way you go about teaching and influencing. Whenever you expect a lot of people, I think they start to expect a lot of themselves too, and that kind of something. And they're talking about quarterbacks maybe not being able to understand what defenses are right now in the NFL coming out of college. Do you think some people have opted for a simpler way so that they can have like maybe quick success as opposed to maybe trying to get the best football that they possibly can in this modern era?
Yeah, I think the one thing that RPOs did was to take away from quarterbacks needing to be developed as drop back passers, which in the NFL you eventually have to do.
At some point.
At some point. You can throw play action passes and all that stuff. Because RPOs make a simple read. You're reading one thing. And then they got into these widespread formations, whatever you call that, air raid offense or whatever. Now the quarterback only reads one side of the field. So the quarterback never really develops in terms of what you have to know to play in the NFL. How do you have to redirect protection so you protect yourself? How do you read coverages so you're in the right place? A lot of times the offensive coordinator is going to give you a middle of the field read on this side and a half field coverage read on this side, and you got to be able to figure it out based on reading the safeties. They never learn how to do that in college anymore, which I think really doesn't help us develop quarterbacks for the NFL like we used to.
But you're able to win some games. You got the best athlete on the field with the ball every single play. You can make some plays. You can win some games. But in the NFL, is it going to work out immediately? Probably not. We got a lot of second chance quarterbacks coming back. Mac Jones right now.
Yeah,
obviously, he is. He's getting an opportunity. I think obviously gets humbled a little bit in New England, had a defense coordinator as an offense coordinator there for a bit. Connor, how do we feel about that now that we're looking back on it? We think it was a good move, bad move?
I think it'd be the equivalent to NASA hiring me to run their space program.
Okay, but I think you would do a good job. I think you would work hard to try to figure it out. But yes, I think that was certainly a setback, and obviously it was talked about at the time, maybe not enough. Then he bounces around a little bit down to Jacksonville, has a couple moments, but not great. Ends up at San Francisco. It's like he's been there, done that with everything, so he can probably pull from some instances. And do you think that's why he had immediate success down there in New Orleans?
Yeah, I think so. I think Mac's the kind of guy, though, that is very smart, wants to get it right. So when you have a guy like that, they want to be around a coach that can help them understand what's expected of them on every play, in the game, in every situation in the game. So he definitely has that now, and I think he's playing well. I always thought he could play well. He played well for us because, he had that with us that last year. And I think the guy can have a good career. I think it's unfair to put a guy in a... Look, I couldn't be an offensive coordinator. Everybody thinks I was a pretty good coach. I was a defensive guy and a special teams guy. And if I had to go be an offensive coordinator, it would have been hell to pay for the poor players trying to play on offense.
What? I'm a pretty good coach. Yeah, I think they do think you're a pretty good coach. And I'm going to let you know, I think you could have been an offense coordinator. I think you could have figured it out. In that brain, that's inside of that great hair, by the way. Wow. You need to be proud of that hair.
Oh, yeah.
Do you see this hair?
Yeah. Unbelievable. Perfect tan, too.
And every week on game day, there's some shit that's going on to his head. And it's like, his hair is beautiful. Wow. I mean, it is. The suits. He's coming off his best offseason at golf.
Look at those shoes. These
shoes. Got Cole Haans on. The guy can go run a sprint right now if he has to. I mean, it's unbelievable. Back down here.
But I have to sit by you, so there's a standard.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I have to live up to the standard.
Okay. AP, he can't even keep a straight face. Go ahead, Tone, with your question for Coach.
Yeah, Coach, listening to you last year and this year, I feel like you talk a lot about explosive play rate. And Texas right now, I believe, is 131st or 132nd in explosive play rate. They're last in the SEC in third down conversions, last in the SEC in red zone, and 14th in scoring in the SEC. And a lot of it, a lot of people are talking about Arch and his struggles. If you're Sark, how do you handle that? Like, can you, maybe bench him for a series or two and, hope that kickstarts something? Or how do you deal with a quarterback who's struggling and then trying to not ruin their confidence?
Yeah, I think a couple things. I don't think Texas has been able to run the ball very consistently, which is going to put you in a lot of bad down and distance situations. So that's going to put more pressure on the quarterback because it's an advantage for the defense. But I think when we had a player that was struggling, or when we lost, I always wanted to be the most technical that I could be so the players could actually see if I just did this correctly, we could have success. rather than putting a lot of pressure on them to get it right, I really wanted to be technical in terms of corrections, whether it's footwork, whether it's arm mechanics, whether it's making the right reads. I just wanted to be really, really technical and show players. I wanted players to be able to see if they did it right, we could have success. And everybody needs to do it right for us all to have success. So that's what I would be really trying to emphasize. I don't think necessarily you only bench a guy when you feel like he's not committed to doing things the way you want him to do it. Or what he's doing is really having a tremendous adverse on the team from an attitude standpoint or something like that. If he's really trying to do it, and when you bench somebody, you better make sure the guy you put in for him is going to be better than he was, or you just create more problems for yourself.
Certainly, but both parties and also the locker room potentially. There is a story, and I don't know if Arch is at this, point yet, but a benching is potentially a perspective shaper too. And I'm not saying Arch should be benched. Okay, I'm not saying I'm not going to be the person that's doing that. But it has not started out the way. And let's talk about DJ Lagway. I mean, there's been a lot of quarterbacks I think coming into this year that we thought were going to be like this. I think Desmond mentioned it this morning. Desmond was like, this was supposed to be one of the best draft classes of quarterbacks that there's ever been. I don't think that conversation is still happening. And we're 4 weeks into the season at this point?
Yeah. There's a lot of guys that are struggling. There's no doubt about that. I agree with that 100%. And I think sometimes creating these expectations, and nobody has created greater expectations for anybody than what we've all created for Arch Manning. A lot because of his name, not necessarily what he's been able to accomplish to this point in his career. And I think that creates a lot of anxiety with players, and I think that anxiety really hurts their development.
Yeah, but we forget they're 19.
Yeah, they're 19 years old, and they need to focus on development. It's like we all need object constancy. We need consistent way to try to develop and improve. I mean, your kids, it doesn't matter who it is. And I think, we're not giving these guys that opportunity now before the expectations get greater than what they've developed to.
Object constancy?
And you need a little of that too.
Hold on. I got a lot of object constancy. So that means like a goal, something to work for, strive for? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, you got something here you got to get committed to, and you got to do the things you need to do process-wise to see it through and stay committed to it and all that. We get so outcome-oriented with some of these things, and then people are disappointed in the outcome, and then the next thing they want to transfer, they're doing something else. So they never learn how to stay committed to something, overcome adversity, have perseverance and resiliency. It's just something that the system is not really geared as much toward now as it used to be.
Object constancy. Let's go to the toxic table. We've been talking about object constancy since I couldn't even remember. Ty, go ahead, pal.
Yeah, I actually think that was maybe the first thing you brought up to me when I started working here, Pat. So it's crazy that it's come full circle like that. But speaking
see that
of
object constancy, boys, we're trying to go ahead and do this thing the right way. That's what we're trying to do, Ty.
Coach, speaking of that whole conversation, I think it was yesterday, Brett Bielema said that he thinks the NCAA is going to start granting players 5 years worth of eligibility. Do you think, like in the grand scheme of things, for coaches and for players, does that ultimately matter? Do you think that will help maybe mitigate the volume of people we have in the transfer portal? So, when it comes to development and stuff like that, if these guys do have an extra year of eligibility, if they're just sitting behind someone, maybe they won't just decide, hey, I need to go somewhere else and play, and then they'll consider maybe staying where they are because they're not burning a year of eligibility anymore.
Yeah, well, I don't know that shorten a guy's career. I think the reason people are trying to extend their careers in college is if you were a college player and you didn't think you were going to make it in the NFL and you had the opportunity to make money in college, you'd want to play for as long as you could. No different than an NFL player want to play for as long as he can. But I really don't think that the 5-year thing is going to keep people from transferring. I think maybe we should come up with some parameters where a player has a responsibility and an obligation to, whether it's a contract or something. If you're going to pay players, we all get paid. We all have a responsibility to do certain things to get paid. But right now in college football, that's not really the case. You can pick up your bags and walk whenever you want, and you don't have any obligation. So there's no cause and effect for ever leaving the job that you have. And I think that's a lesson we all need to learn. from a responsibility and accountability standpoint. I made a commitment here. I've got to stay here for 2 years. I can only transfer once as an undergraduate. I can only transfer once as a graduate, whatever the rules might be. But there's some kind of responsibility that goes and accountability that goes with you're getting paid. You have an obligation to do certain things to get paid.
Yeah, we're about to get to CBA, I assume, a collective bargaining agreement between players and the college. It's all in front of us. We just have no idea when it's going to happen. A lot of things to get figured out. One thing that did get figured out is no longer 2 transfer portal windows. There's only one. It's in the middle of the playoffs still, which is going to be a huge conversation whenever we get there. Obviously, that's right around the corner. But there's only, 20 teams that have to worry about that, seemingly, year in, year out, for whenever you're talking about the playoffs. Everybody else voting on it. What are your thoughts on the one transfer portal and when it is now?
I think one transfer portal is probably a good thing. I think when you have your team in the spring, you go through spring practice, you go through the off-season program, then all of a sudden guys leave. It's not probably great for them in terms of the next place they go, and it's not great for you trying to manage a roster. So that's probably a good thing. But I think that we're forcing people in college to move more to the NFL model in terms of organization. Like you have a personnel department.
GM.
Yeah, like we had a GM, we had a personnel department. And I separated it from the portal to college recruiting. I had different guys over here evaluating guys in the portal. You had different guys over here evaluating guys, that were in high school. And then now you can send different people out to recruit them. It doesn't really have to just be the assistants. So you're actually expanding staff.
Operations
to be able to manage this kind of circumstance. So, for example, if you're in the playoffs, you want to have other people that are not focused on the playoffs. They're focused on recruiting. They're focused on guys in the portal, so that you're recruiting those guys at the same time you're continuing to play.
It's going to be a lot of drama. Always. There's going to be, 5 years of eligibility. That means there's going to be somebody that's going to somehow play for 10 teams.
Oh, yeah.
If I'm doing the math right.
Yeah.
That's going to end up happening.
That's crazy.
Well, what are you talking about? 10 teams, 10 opportunities, 5 years.
I hate to bring this up because this is all about football, but, every time you transfer, you got 20% less chance to graduate. So nobody ever talks about education anymore. And I do think that's important. I mean, what if you're a guy and you're making $700,000 a year playing college football?
Okay.
And you don't graduate, and you don't play in the NFL.
Well,
what kind of job are you getting when you get out of school?
Bartender. Yeah, world needs plenty of ditch diggers.
You're paying somebody to get the degree. You got $700,000. What are we talking about?
But that's not life-changing money. That doesn't last forever.
No, yeah, but I'm hiring a fleet of people to make me a doctor. They're doing online classes. University of Phoenix, $700,000 should be able to acquire a team of people that can be Pat McAfee at the University of Phoenix and make me a doctor. I don't know if everybody's going to do that. That's in college football.
Bad idea.
But I'm just pitching one idea.
That is a hell of an idea.
That's what I'm talking about. That's what they should do. But those guys are going to get another year of $700,000. And to your point about the 5 years of eligibility, that's definitely happening because coaches certainly would like a very experienced player to get another year, and players that aren't going to make the NFL would certainly like another year of eligibility of earning 6 figures to play football before they go join the CFL or the UFL. AJ has a question for you back in the Thunderdome, Coach Saban.
Yeah, Coach, how do you think what are you looking for, I guess, tomorrow night in this game with Miami and Florida? What are you looking for early on? Like, what do you want to see?
Well, I think Florida has the best roster, they've had for a long time. Now, I think the quarterback has struggled, and I think he's struggled because he's not been able to practice, so he's not been able to get enough reps. Some guys can play without practice, and some guys need to get reps to be able to get it right.
Yep.
And I don't know this guy, but, he hadn't played well because he hadn't been able to practice much. But they have a good roster, and I think if the quarterback plays better, that they can be a team that could just about beat anybody. Their defense is pretty good. They got a big offensive line. They've got a decent back. I think they can be pretty good. I think Miami is one of the most complete teams that I've seen, from being physical, being balanced on offense, being able to run the ball, being able to pass the ball with a good quarterback and good skill guys and make explosive plays, as well as the fact that they're playing very well on defense. And they've got a very good front. I love Jason Taylor. He was one of the best players I ever had the opportunity to be around. Coach, I'm talking about from an attitude standpoint, from a leadership standpoint. I mean, he's a great player too, but and he's coaching that defensive line, and those guys have gotten better every year, and now they got a pretty dominant front. And the back end's a lot better. They did a great job in the transfer portal getting some guys that could play in the back. So they have one of the most complete teams I've seen so far this year.
Before we have the heart out here, and we send you on your day with Miss Terry. Miss Terry's here, by the way, boys. Miss Terry.
Yeah. Hi, Miss Terry.
Hey, blessed us. They all say hello, Miss Terry.
That's why I'm behaving up here.
Yeah, I see you. You didn't go to your normal dance routine. Yeah, Miss Terry, it's great to see you. Thank you for having him here, looking the way he looks, acting the way he acts. Mario Cristobal was up here earlier. I almost shot for a single leg and then choked him out. Didn't do that because he's got a big game tomorrow. Yeah. He's badass. He seems awesome. He seems like the perfect guy for this job. He said when he was a kid, he was a Hurricanes fan. Obviously, he plays here, and then now he's back here. It feels like he is the perfect guy for this job. Do you agree?
He's the perfect guy for this job. You know, not only is he a good coach, and he's really, really enthusiastic. He's got great energy. He impacts other people in a positive way. But, you know, when we used to recruit down here when he was on our staff, we go in all these schools, man. Everybody speaks Spanish. He's right in there speaking with them. I mean, like I'm like recruiting in a foreign country or something. I mean, but everybody loved the guy because he has a great personality, and you know, he's great around people. And I think the big challenge for him is, can his players and his team keep the edge throughout the season having success?
Yeah, because once you win a couple, especially down here in Miami, there's some distractions. You know, I think we all understand that. Gumpy's been down here for about 8 days in total in the offseason, and we almost lost him in this job. Yeah, I couldn't even imagine professional athletics. So, I mean, he is a Miami fan, though, through and through. Any question for Coach Saban now that we're down there in your turf here, Gumsh?
Yeah, did you watch the game at all last night? You see how Tua and the Dolphins looked against the Bills, Coach?
No, I did not watch the game last night.
Jeez.
But I was, you know, very interested in listening to Josh Allen's comments because I think that guy's a great player, great competitor. You know, I wanted to ask him, like I'm a coach, so I want to know, how did you guys practice? You know, you practice in the morning, you practice in the afternoon. I mean, how did you practice? Because when I was here in the Dolphins, we practiced in the morning because it was so hot all the time. And, you know, I mean, watch the film after practice rather than watching it before practice. And I just like to ask some of those coach type questions.
Why didn't you ask him? You're right here, Coach. If you would like to co-host anytime, please do that. AJ, obviously, back in the Thunderdome. The boys are back there. They can't wait to see you in person. We will continue digitally throughout the next hour or so while we pick games and have a good time. Have the greatest weekend of your life. Football is going to deliver. Tomorrow morning, we will be live here from Miami. Be a friend, tell a friend something nice that might change their life. Goodbye. I think we nailed it.
Got it.
Zero down there. That was situational awareness right there, Coach. You see that?
Yeah.
Good clock, man.
Yeah, we had no timeouts.
Yeah.
We had no timeouts. We had a rookie at running back, too. So right before the snap, we had to tell him, hey, fucking get out of bounds. You know, that's what we had to do that entire thing right there. Okay, Coach Saban, ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
You want this, you got that.